Well, welcome back, Hollie Taylor and Devon Wells, for sharing with us on Black History Month. Hollie, I want to come to you and just ask a little of your personal experience with perhaps racism or injustice. What's happened in your life?
I count myself very fortunate as I didn't really feel like I had experienced a lot of racial injustices per se. I'm mixed, so my dad is Black and my mom is white, but it was my mom who raised me. So I was very exposed to her culture, as it tends to be. The mom of the family passes down a lot of the traditions. And so growing up, I felt very fortunate, but there was something that I did deal with on a pretty regular basis. And just how I had internalized it, it was more of an opportunity to help my friends understand that being Black is, yes, a skin color, but it's also a culture. And my experiences were the same culture experiences as they had, but I also had the opportunity to share in some other cultural experiences with my dad. So I'd always say it took a great many nations to make me: English, Irish, French, Canadian, Mohican, Trinidadian. So I always would let people know if they said, "What are you?" which would be a microaggression. And if you're not too sure what a microaggression is, it's those subtle comments that people make that can be discriminatory. And they may not realize that it has discriminatory meanings behind it, but it can make somebody feel like they just don't quite fit in. And so not only would I have questions like that, but my mom had gotten remarried and had two more girls, and they were white. So I'd always get those questions of, "Are you adopted?" And it just continued to feed that idea that I just didn't belong. And so it's kind of the first part is, dealing with people's assumptions and then phrasing questions as it being like a truth. "Oh, how come you can't dance very well?" Those sort of little questions really do needle under people's skin. Then I got married to a Black man. I have two beautiful Black daughters of my own. And my perception once again changed as I saw how the world treated Black people. And knowing that, if my husband was late coming home, I would feel worried. I would wonder if something had happened to him based on his race. I want to be able to make sure I can do my daughter's hair really well, because that's a huge part of Black culture. As you can tell, my hair is it's curly, but it's white hair from my mom's side of the family. And so there's just a lot of things over my lifetime that I've had to really pause and wonder, where did that stem from? And so, yeah, it's a little bit about kind of my experiences. They weren't overt, but there is still so much more to the conversation. We're not done yet.
Wow, that is so helpful, Hollie, because I don't think we're talking about those even subtleties in conversation. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. That's really helpful for people, no matter what race or culture you come from. Devon, the importance of talking about race and racism these days, why is it so significant, do you think?
I think it's very, very important that we, have those conversations, that we speak very loud. Because as I said, I look at my kids, for the future, and they need to understand and they need to feel, the importance of, being themselves, being that person under the color, of their skin. Because one day, who would speak for them, when they're on the ground and someone has their knees on their neck and they're saying they can't breathe. We need to have that noise. We need to speak out now, because again, it is important that we as, as young people too, someone needs to stand up. So I think, right now it is the time. And it is the time that we be even louder for our kids, for the future.
Yeah. So good. I totally agree. Maybe this is a loaded question, but just in general, how do you both feel about how the church is doing in Canada? And when I say that, I mean those who say they're followers of Jesus. We have so much to learn, but Hollie, how are we doing?
I think with everybody, it's a journey, it's a process. I've heard of, churches coming together to have the conversation about race in their church, which is a great first step. But I feel that people can confuse hate and hurt. So you might not have said something intentionally to hurt somebody. You don't have the hate there, but the hurt was still caused. And I think if you're having a conversation and you feel inside the angst and you feel offended and you don't really agree with what the person is telling you, that's their experience. And I'm talking about, more white people who are hearing the stories of the people of color and Black people. That was their experience. And that's a real hurt. And we just have to do better at being a bridge, putting aside our own insecurities and just looking for ways to build a bridge, to reconcile, to find ways to be just so supportive and to love each other better. They're not saying you caused the hurt. They're saying it was a hurtful situation.
That's really helpful, Holly. Thank you for that. Devon, how do you think the Christians or the church is doing in this regard?
The church, I think right now, they have, especially in the time that we're in COVID, I've seen many of them stand up, and they've stood very strong. And now, within Black History Month, they have come together. I think the love is there because we're all suffering in some way, or maybe not suffering, but we're somewhat, challenged a little bit. And with being in Black History Month, together with the whole pandemic that we're in, I think there is a lot of love that is being spread right now, with their struggles. So working with over 500 churches in Toronto, Ontario alone, I've seen definitely some sort of change or some sort of compassion towards the world, and the community, especially the homeless, especially, the families that can't provide within that rural areas. So many of them I've seen, they've been doing very good.
Well, this is good news, and we're committed on 700 Club Can to share the good news of what God is doing in Canada. God does his work through us. So tell us one thing each that practically our viewers maybe could do today. Holly, you first.
Oh, goodness. Everyone's on their own part of their own journey. So you just got to do what's comfortable for you and where you're at. Not everybody's going to become an activist about it in the sense of going to rallies, but maybe it's seeing somebody being hurt, verbally abused in a grocery store, and you assert your voice and you stand up for them. So pray about it and just find ways to show your support to someone who is being treated unjustly.
Very good. Devon?
Be positive, be love, be compassionate to each other. It's my motto. And I believe if we're all thinking of our neighbors, it's almost like, back home in the Caribbean, when our neighbors don't have sugar or salt, we would definitely, hand over, without a charge or saying, hey, you owe me. I think we should constantly be there for each other, whether you're Black, white, whether it's COVID or not. Be positive and be there for each other.
Well, that is a good word. I mean, that's right from the scripture too, right? Be a good neighbor, be kind, watch out for each other. Thank you to both of you for the time you've taken. Thank you for what you're doing in Canada to spread the gospel and this good news of Jesus. Appreciate you both.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us.